all systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the Wednesday Golf Show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. Got my guy Hoopster here with me. As always, hit the like button on the way in, subscribe to the channel. We're going to break down all things Scottish Open. My mic messes up again, let me know, but I got the new stuff ordered, so we're going to finalize this whole purchase here, Hoopster. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Yeah, excited to dive into it. Nice field, kind of like a signature event a little bit. That's what we kind of talked about on the Monday show. This field is pretty loaded. It's fun. Sounds like could be some pretty easy conditions. I know a lot of people are saying that we could see like 20 under potentially, which I wouldn't be surprised by any means. Sounds like there's some rain stuff in the area, so we could see some easy conditions, a birdie type fest. And if people are saying that, usually people are on the other side, like, oh, it's going to be so difficult, it's going to be so hard to score, and then these guys go out and tear it up. If they're saying 20 under, kind of believe it. So I'm playing this like as a birdie fest, looking forward to dive in to it. And like you said, we got the major next week, which is going to be very, very exciting. A little shift in the time of golf. If you're on the East Coast, you get some early morning stuff. So I think it's, for me, it's like 2 a.m. it starts. So I won't be up watching it. I'll get the updates in the morning and we'll go from there.
Great segue too. So I'll talk about that in a second. Shout out to our guy, Go Collect, first in, Newens, B-Wald, Nate, Evan. Been a while before he's in here live, so nice to see him back in here. Notes, Polish Prince, Illini fan, Cody, just a bunch of good people. Jay Stubbs, what's going on? So appreciate all you guys joining us. But real quick, want to segue with what you said there. A lot of weather talk, and the later it gets in the day, which is funny because we're the closest to lock that we've ever really recorded. Usually we record and have plenty of time. Lock is overnight tonight, so going to get your lineups in earlier today. But just in general, Hoop, a lot of talk about the PM AM wave. And a lot of people might like that, right? They can stack the PM wave, go PM AM wave, go to sleep, wake up. Maybe their golfers have just teed off or not quite yet and go from there. So what are you seeing with the weather and what's your thoughts on that? Because it does look trending that direction, but it's also changed a few times since I've been looking. So it's tough to say.
Yeah, I mean, it changes a lot, and that's kind of what you get with the weather in this area. It shifts a lot. If going any direction, I would say it would be, Thursday PM, Friday AM, but I don't think it's like a significant advantage. When I'm looking for weather advantages, I'm really looking to, 15, 20 mile an hour sustained with gusts getting, closer to 25, 30. And I'm not seeing it at this point. So I don't know. My biggest takeaway in terms of the playing conditions is I think it's just going to play easy. So if you build a certain way when you think it's going to be a birdie fest, that's my biggest takeaway, not necessarily the weather. And as always, you've been talking about this stuff for years, way before anyone else, where you just naturally you'll build these wave stacks. And if one side has an advantage, sometimes you don't see it. Sometimes you don't see it. So you're automatically having a leg up on the field by building these wave stacks, regardless of the weather. I think that's kind of the situation you could employ this week. But for me, just playing it straight up, and I'm going to kind of assume that there's going to be some birdies out there.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we talk about all the time. I love a good wave to stack, but in general, even if we do end up seeing like a stroke and a quarter, whatever it is, that is a significant advantage. That's great. But then you still got to get everything right with it. And it's, we're not seeing it very often where it's everybody from that side is what ends up being required. We do see that in these overseas events. It can happen. And I'm naturally stacking some of it. If I was stacking right now, I'm with Joanne. She says leaning PMAM. Like you said, it's definitely that. But just as of right now, looking at it and you're seeing it, it doesn't even hit 15 miles an hour sustained ever. The highest is 14. The highest gusts are actually right around when the PM wave goes out at 1 o'clock local. So it's like, that's technically the highest gust. And then it cools off. The rain kind of ends. It's not like it gets that much warmer. It's 52 in the morning, 55 in the afternoon. So I'm not selling anybody off of it. It's all in the slate plan over at the site. I play the waves anyway. I like guys getting out there too first thing in the morning sometimes, and I'll play that. But here, even on Friday, the winds do pick up around lunchtime, but it's still 8 to 12 miles per hour. It's not that crazy. And then it does pick up as the day goes on with the gusts, but they're pretty steady gusts. So I don't know. To me, it's tricky. I think, like you said, a lot of people will think of Scottish Open and think like grinder event. And you talked about it, the caddies over there. You just saw the most recent tweet that got put out there. A lot of other people that have mentioned it that are over there, that it's going to be birdie fest, or there's going to be a lot of birdies out there. And even if there's not on the first day, just because of, the weather coming in cold and wet, that sort of thing, I think you'll still see it pan out over the weekend. So yeah, I'm with you. I like that setup there. Anything else you want to talk about when it comes just to the event in general, grand scheme overview before we hop into these tiers?
The one narrative you always get the week before a major is these guys, don't want to win, or, aren't really all that focused on winning. They're out here just to like work on their game and tune up for the major. I think that's just the biggest crock of shit like ever. And it's, you don't hear as much of it nowadays. You used to all the time. Oh, it's a week before a major. These guys don't want to win. They're just going to work on certain shots. Like, these guys want to freaking win the golf tournament. So that's one thing, I immediately dismissed these weeks before majors. Like, these guys want to win. If they're in contention, they're going to try to win the event. There's no doubt about it. So that's one talking point I hate the week before majors. Heard a little bit of it this week, not a ton, but these guys want to win the golf event.
The opposite of Rory, right? Rory typically wins the events before the major, and then he makes sure or worse.
That's why I like him this week.
Yeah, it's opposite, but that's the other way. We'll talk about this in a second. Shout out to our guy Landa is in here, says ship it, and then says, I think you got to be on Team Jam 'em in this week. I think Hoopster is definitely on that from what I saw earlier today. We'll talk more on it in a second, but no real heavy marketing push for this one, Hoop. I just say quickly, definitely, if you guys didn't hear, talked about it a little bit on the Monday show, talked about it on the Mayo show today. I put it out there, but 12 p.m. Eastern on this Friday on this channel. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you got notifications turned on to be giveaways, all that. But it's going to be our NFL early bird launch show. And we got some cool stuff to talk about. I think it's going to be one of the better offers you'll ever see at SHIPIT Nation, and something really interesting, different than what most of the rest of the industry is doing. So check it out. This Friday will be Hoop and myself showing off some of the new stuff for NFL, breaking it down, talking about it, and then some of the other stuff we've got going on in general at SHIPIT Nation. So check us out on Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Hoop, let's get into this then, man. Let's talk about these guys up top here. And Rory Xander, AM wave, by the way, if we're going to, start this conversation quickly, but AM wave for Rory Xander, PM wave for Ludwig Morikawa. And ownership looks pretty, again, we'll see how it goes in the higher stakes, the smaller fields, the things like that. But what are you seeing up top here, and what are your thoughts with that in mind?
Yeah, if you watch the Monday show, I think we kind of nailed it. Like, the way roster construction is looking is going to be very easy to get these guys in. We talked about it, like I said, on Monday, where these guys were going to get a lot of ownership. This before any ownership numbers came out. We anticipated ownership would be high on all these guys because they're popular names, easy to fit in. And, regardless of where you go for ownership, which obviously I think you should be coming to shipitnation.com, my non-biased opinion. But anywhere you look, these guys are getting big ownership, and that's just because it's easy to play these guys. I think a majority of teams this week will start with at least one, and you can go ahead and play two of them rather easily. And we talked about it again on the Monday show at length, how easy it is to fit these guys in. If any of them potentially get squeezed, I think it could be Ludwig, but it's not going to be it's not like he's going to go down and be like 12% owned. I think all these guys come in over 20. I think most of them probably push 30 because of how easy it is. And like I said, like, you can play one of them very easily. You can play two of them. And our guy Landa kind of pointed it out, like, he's on Team Jam 'em in this week and kind of with them, because a lot of people don't necessarily go that route. So I think that's one way you can play the guys up top and get a little bit different. Now, I mean, people will still do it, but a lot of people are against doing that. So jamming them in, you have a lot of salary. Even if you start with the top two guys, and let's just say you go Rory Xander, which is aggressive, obviously, and you find a 5K guy that you like, I'll throw in Southgate, because a lot of people like Southgate. You're right back to essentially $7,000 per spot. We talked about it on Monday as well. There's like 20 guys in the 6K range that I just rattled off that I think are in play. So it's very easy to build with two of these guys. Ownership is going to be big. Like, I like Rory this week. I think, the time off from the U.S. Open, I think he comes and tries to prove a point, and it's going to be easier for him to prove that point this week opposed to next week. So I'm in on Rory. always in on Xander. Morikawa is playing phenomenal golf, and Ludwig just shows up every time he tees it up. He's been a pleasant surprise this season to the PGA DFS world. So I'm in on all these guys, and the only way you can really get different, I think, is by potentially getting aggressive up here and playing two of them. And it's relatively easy to do, so people will still do it, but some won't. So it's a loaded upper range. Rory, Xander, Ludwig, Morikawa. It's really hard to pinpoint something that you don't like about one of these guys this week. If you wanted to make the case against Rory, maybe it's he shit the bed at the U.S. Open. His head's not right, but that's a tough argument to make. Very, very tough argument to make. And I think these guys are all phenomenal plays in their own right, and I will have exposure to all of them. Not going to make any stands up here. I think it's for me, the way I'm building teams, it would I think that'd be foolish of me to make a stand up top. I'm just rolling with these guys and looking to get different elsewhere.
Yeah, I like to make the stands down low too. I'll say what's up to my guy Stewie. What's up to Deacon and Johnny? We will get to this later. Some of the non-popular guys down low, I definitely have some pegged, and we've got them on the stone over at SHIPIT Nation as well. You can check that out. So I'll get to that. But like Landis says, and you have said this for years, people, it's not just the balanced only. It's what you said, where someone's going to feel much more comfortable taking just one of Rory's. Yeah. And that's why they're so spread out, even though they're all 20 to 30%, probably 25 average. Some will get to 30, some will go to 21, whatever. But those guys will be played as one. And then they'll either drop down to the 8Ks and get a couple, or they'll add in one 9K guy and then balance it out from there. And
that's really the balance. That's kind of the balance build this week, playing one of these guys, because you're not really, it doesn't take much to have solid golfer. I mean, even if you start with Morikawa, you still have $8,000 per spot. That's a balance build essentially, right? I mean, so starting with Morikawa is a balance build this week because of the way these salaries shake out. And then people will also drop down, and some will start in the 9K range as well. So I don't know, it's different because of the way salaries are this week. But just playing one up top is essentially a balance build because of the low top price at 11.9, and then the 5K range, where it's, again, we talk about all the time. I think you do a great job of breaking it down, where it's not necessarily the 5K range or the guys in the 5K range. It's what it does to the rest of the salaries. The 7K guys are now 6K guys. The 8K guys are now 7K guys. It brings everyone down. And when you don't bring the top salary up, it just makes all-star teams essentially what you're getting. PGA DFS lineups that look like all-star type teams. And that's what we're getting this week. And the balance build essentially is, if you're playing one of these guys, you still get 5 other good golfers to go along with it.
All right, so I got 2 things to add, because this is the other shows will focus on the picks and plays like we always talk about, and we're going to focus on the process. And I think this is a great talking point. I got 2 more thoughts that go with that, and they all tie together in the end. So I'll kick it now. Like, the setup is this too. It's what you talked about. What is this going to be? If you think it's going to be a scoring fest, like we've seen some people mention, and we sort of are leaning towards that. We know links courses, when they have wind and they, are going to be freezing cold, raining a lot, windy, then there's not going to be many scores out there. When it looks like this weather forecast though, and what people are over there saying, there's going to be even more scoring. They all play the same original 36 holes the first 2 days to make the cut. There's going to be tons of guys 7K and below that are going to score and be able to score, that end up being in these rosters that allows you to jam in the guys at the top. Also, Hoop, to your point, is I don't think as many people go double stud, but it's like when you look at that 7K range, even though there's 100 plus guys down there pretty much, and let's call 50 of them playable. Like, people could tell a story for 50 of them. Honestly, just looking at it this week, nobody wants to go down there. Even if they move off your Rorys and your Xanders and that, they're trying to get 3 9K guys and just stay in those 7s. And it might be because of what Andrew says. Like, sometimes people aren't familiar with it, but I think it's also the opposite too. It's also where people have their guy. Oh, I know I want to play Ewan Ferguson because he won last week, or nobody knows about Jordan L. Smith, so I'm going to move in the chips on him. And then it just spreads out down there, but people feel like once they have one, that's all they need. And you can easily just land in all those guys in the 7s and that too, and not need anybody down there. So all that ties together to say, I think, like you said, using the double studs or getting really aggressive up top, like an 11 and 2 9s, or a 10 and 2 9s, 2 10s and a high 8, whatever it might be. I definitely think some of those builds are strong for that reason. And then the flip of it is going to be what we get to later when we get down to that 8K range. Playing more 8K guys is going to complete, even though it's even more balanced than the team jam them in, It's more so about avoiding the sevens where everybody is ending up. Everybody's landing in the sevens on the same spot, the same guys, all of that. It's just two different ways that you can build this week that I think are unique. And even though some do it, not all do. So I definitely think it's, like Go Collect says, warm and fuzzy, landing in that range. Steven says, it feels like I want to play 2 of the 9K. Best plays do well there. It's possible, but I definitely think the way the pricing sets up, you're able to get away with it more, yet not as many people are doing it because there's so many names up the middle that people are happy with. Anything else you want to add on that, Hoop? If not, we can move on to this 9K range and just discuss. It's only 6 guys in the 9K range.
Yeah, I think Tommy Fleetwood might be an extension of the 10K range because a lot of people are liking him for the right reasons. He's been very consistent. He typically struggles to win or get into contention on U.S. soil, but when he's over here, he has the upside to win. I think a lot of people are looking at that and bumping him a little bit. And I am too. 9.9. I don't love that price on him, but I will definitely have some exposure to Fleetwood at 9.9. Victor Hovland at 9.7. Not a ton of interest. Tom Kim, I'm kind of surprised that Tom Kim's getting the ownership that he is this week. A lot of people seem to like Tom Kim. He's a name floating around, and I've been playing a lot of Tom Kim. I think you have as well. We kind of went on that narrative after the round 4 at the Masters that he found something, and he did go on a little bit of a run. But man, 9.5 for Tom Kim, I don't love that. And if he's going to be a play that gets kind of steamed up and a guy that people like go to, I'm fine being off Tom Kim at 9,500. Our ownership. Just wanted to pull it up real quick to see. Let me see here.
17.5.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's up there. So if he's going to be that high on, I'm fine. I'm fine being on the highest price tag he's been in a long ass time. And there's definitely been some flaws in his game along the way. I did find this little heater, but him getting ownership, I'm fine being off of that. Matsuyama and Minwoo are guys that people are interested in. I think I like Matsuyama over Minwoo, but both in play for me. And then Fitzpatrick probably comes in low owned. His game has just kind of been a mess. I mean, there just hasn't been many times this year where you need Matthew Fitzpatrick. If it's this week, it's probably not going to be a good week for me because I'll continue to stay off of him. But the main thing for me in this 9K range, I think for sure, the main takeaway is, the ownership on Tom Kim. Just kind of surprised it's getting to that point. And, if that looks like what it's going to be, I'm fine being off of him for sure.
Yeah, Billy covered it. It's course history, right?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
The last 2 years, people love that, but we'll see how it actually goes because there's a couple things going against him. Again, we were just talking about this in the Discord. It's, what we're throwing back and forth around in there was that, as much as people are talking about PMAM as we get later in the day and later in the week, which we're there now, it's not everybody commits to it. Like 6 to 10% max, like usually 6-7% will go all in on a wave. But it's not just that. That's not kind of the point. For me, it's the opposite. It's that also takes away from some of the ownership stands, right? So if Tom Kim is already, we're seeing 17 and a half, he's an AM guy, and then people move away because of it later in the day, and he gets down to 14, 15. I don't care about the 3 points. I'm not lobbying for Tom Kim. I don't care. I actually have a different take. But I'm saying that's just an example. He's a guy that I could see, as our guy Degenerate 75 would say, moonwalking back. I don't see how he pushes 18 to 20% or in that range when this is what's happening. It's literally just based off of course history pretty much. And also the other thing about it, my take that I would give on a guy like him is the last 2 years were nothing like we're expecting it to play this year. It was Rory won at 15 under. And then the year before was like Xander at 7 under or something. It's like he grinded it out. His ball striking was enough to keep him around 4 days and keep him in it. Grinding versus guys going out in a birdie fest, or again, not expecting like a Rocket Mortgage or a JDC, but just saying if it's going to be a lot more scoring, you got to keep that in mind as well. I will say Andrew brought it up here too, and I like this one. Where did it go? Oh, it was actually Go Collect. I like this one. Links course for Victor. I have interest in Victor just because of that. The guy can just putt it, move it around that way. It can usually be a little bit better in that sense, so I don't hate it. So I like a little bit of Hovland. I also like Hideki, who is squeezed right in between Kim and Minwoo, but I still like Minwoo. So I would like Minwoo more than Tom Kim, and I like Decky in that mix as well. So sort of 3 of the guys there, Hovland, Minwoo, Fitzpatrick would be, Hideki would stand out. And then they chatted about it. I was going to bring it up. Fitzpatrick just got engaged. He's got a little swagger coming in. People make fun of his teeth. He got them fixed. He went and got the braces. he got them all dialed in. I mean, he's trying to get his life together over here, guys. You got to give him a little bit of credit. So he's at 9,000. He's in that PMA. If you're getting that way with the stacks, and his ownership looks to be one of the lowest, if not the lowest in that, I'm definitely, interested in some of these 9K guys. I think playing, a 10K, a 9K, and a high 8, 2 10Ks, one of these 9Ks, a couple of these 9Ks that others aren't on. I see a lot of different ways you can go in here. Is there anything else that you wanted to add with this, or we can move on to the 8K range?
Yeah, good to move on. I mean, a small number of golfers in this range, so not a ton to really chat about, but I think we're kind of on the same page there in the 9Ks, 8Ks. I just look at a lot of these guys, and to me, they're similar, if not better plays. Like if I was doing projections, like I would have a lot of these guys projected higher than some of the guys in the 9K range. Like you look at Corey Connors. Corey Connors looking to come in much lower owned than Tom Kim. Like give me Corey Connors straight up over Tom Kim for what, $600 less. JT, we've shit on him a lot in this show, and rightfully so. I mean, he fucked my kid over for an autograph and wouldn't, pay him any attention. He's gotten a lot of shit on this show, but at 8.8, I'll take him over, some of those guys in the 9K range for sure. I'll take my chances. Like it hasn't been good for him, but he is coming off one of his better finishes at the Travelers where he finished 5th, all pretty solid rounds. I'll take my chance. It's just putting with him. Can he make some of these putts? At 8,800, I'll take my chances there. You got a guy like Im playing phenomenal golf, top 10 in 4 out of his last 5. Rye playing probably the best golf of his career, and finally now starting to see some high-end finishes. The 7th at the John Deere, not a great event. 2nd at the Rocket Mortgage, not a great event. But had the 19th at the U.S. Open, 14th at the Canadian Open. He's playing the best golf of his career, 8,300. Interested there. Wyndham Clark at 81. Haven't been playing a lot of Wyndham Clark, but at 8,100, I'll cheaper than the average roster spot on DraftKings. I think I'll take some chances, and then I'll just continue to, for the most part, be out on Spieth. I played some last week. It's just not. When's the last time you needed Spieth to win a GPP in PGA DFS? Can you remember?
It might be 2022 at the Scottish Open when he came.
Right. Honestly, it's been a long ass time since you've looked at the teams at the end of the event and say, man, I needed Jordan Spieth to make money this week. It's just been a long, long time. Things have not been great. And even when he is good, it's just a ho-hum finish where, you don't necessarily need him. So continue to stay off him. I just don't see the upside, but really like the guys at the top, like the guys in the middle, and then I'll take a chance on a guy like Wyndham at 81 and Thigala at 82. I haven't fully decided what I'll do with him. You know what? We haven't officially had the keeper cut in a while. Just keeper cut. You guys put the comments in there in the chat. We'll see. So Thigala keeper cut. The thing that worries me about him, he always gets that ownership. Does he get it this week? I don't know. But again, he's cheaper than the average roster spot on DraftKings, so maybe we do take some chances on Thigala and MME this week. But I like this range quite a bit. Like him more than the 9s, I'd say overall.
I think I like the Thigala boom bust is at least he's been in the mix, 2nd, 12th amongst miscuts, 50 seconds and 48s. He still gets you those upper finishes, and we haven't seen that out of some of these other guys here. The Wyndham Clark, like the chat said, is he back? Too much upside not to play him at 8.1. He did just get a 9th place, but before that had been pretty bad. And again, his course history is based on the last 2 years. So it's tough to say, but I have to call this out because, just give the people a little bit, a little taste if they want it. It's a good week to sign up for SHIPIT Nation. Even if you just sign up for the week of PGA, you get the major next week. But obviously the announcement on Friday, I think a lot of people are going to want to wait for that. Again, 12 p.m. Eastern on Friday on this channel, Hoop and myself. We did no marketing off the top. That usually tells you something good is coming. So you're going to want to be here on Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. But just to note, giving away one piece off the site, Hoop, the tier rankings have a guy in it for you that this has to be the definition of business decision. You have never played JT forever. You talk so much shit on this guy like we could never play him, and you're calling a JT week. If you're putting him in your tier rankings, and I saw him up there in the player pool a little bit, you're calling a positive JT week, and I don't think you've ever got that wrong yet. So can you speak a little more on that? This is your boy is back or what?
Going back to the launch of SHIPIT Nation, and when I have historically shit on a guy, talking about their accolades, talking about the state of their game, just talking about them as an athlete in general, shitting on them continuously. And then I get on them as a play. It's worked out quite well. Dak, Najee Harris during NFL season. There's been other golfers along the way. And over here at SHIPIT Nation, we call it a business decision. This week, JT, 8,800. It's a business decision. I think he gets the job done for the SHIPIT Nation community. So, yeah, I mean, it's I'm in on him. It's been a while. Let's make it happen.
I'm in with you, and I also think a really interesting lineup is JT, third guy, in maybe even fourth guy if you want to get it really aggressive, but it's tougher. So I would say third guy in is a really interesting way to use him this week instead of like most picking a guy up top, then going to JT and then dropping down into the comfy zone. I think, that'd be another way you could do it, but I like using him as like a third guy in. So definitely have interest. It's more of a keep for Theegala. There's about 5 or 6 cuts, but way more people said keep. And I didn't see if there was anything. I mean, Andrew says this, it is kind of true. I just don't know if he's going to, like we talked earlier about guys moonwalking back. And if a guy gets steam, he is in the PM wave. So maybe he gets a little late steam, but realistically, at least as of now, I'll put it in the Discord later if I see anything different. We have him at, what do we got?
Like 11? Was it like 10? I mean, or 10%?
9.6. Sub 10 right now, but again, can change with the late steam. So if we have any updates, we'll post that into the Discord later on. But for right now, I would say it could be the one spot we finally get him where he's not going to be owned like that. I also think it's pretty unique to go underneath of Rai and Sungjae. Sungjae, I could see getting steamed late for sure, where you could land on like a Theegala Spieth together or something. And I know you don't like Spieth. I'm just using examples of going to the bottom. People like Windy C could go with that as well. This is a good build. Like I said, like if he's your fourth guy and it's even crazier, but it just depends on how you're building and what you're building. And again, to make it fit, it's obviously possible since he's just 8,800, but that would be a way to get different with it because then you're going to end up skipping that comfy, cozy 7K range. So I don't hate it. So yeah, don't mind that. The 7K range hoop is only like 16 guys, I think. So it's not a big range this week, but take us into that 7K range and just your thoughts in general. A lot of the AM guys fall in here. So it's a lot of guys playing in the morning tomorrow for
the smaller 7K range, just a product of them bringing back the 5K, like we talked about it. And I mentioned it in the last tier, the tier before, where again, with the 5K range, it's not necessarily the guys in the 5K range and can you play them, can you not? It's what it does to the rest. And these guys in the reason we only see 16 or whatever it is, 7, I think you said 16 in the 7K range is because a lot of them got bumped down to the 6K range. So that's why it makes roster construction so easy. Davis Thompson right at the top, 7-9. If you've been playing them and riding them, I see no reason to get off of him because of the win. Like he's 7,900. He does not need to win this week. Like top 15 you would take. Guy's playing phenomenal golf. He's got, just all the confidence and momentum in the world right now. I'm interested in staying in on him. Robert McIntyre's been up and down all over the place. Obviously has had the win at the Canadian Open, big for him. I like him at 78. Homa 70. I mean, this is a range that's going to be very popular. Homa 77. Sepp Straka was like the second most expensive guy on the slate last week. Now he's 7,600. Same with where's Davis? Denny McCarthy. Same thing. Was in the 10K range. Now he's down to 7.4. Seabass, I think, phenomenal play. Just been playing great. I think this sets up really nice for him. Siwoo Kim 75. I got guys Adam Scott, Keith Mitchell, Tom Hoagie, and then this McKibben guy that people want to play at 7,000 flat. There's just a lot of plays in here. I think this range gets a lot of ownership. And I guess the one nice thing about so many playable guys here is you can count on the ownership getting spread out. It's not like one guy is going to be super, super popular in this range where you have to fade them because of the ownership. That's the nice thing about so many guys in play. You're going to see the exact same thing we talked about the 6K range. There's so many guys in play where ownership's just going to get spread out. It's not like we're seeing someone 15, 16, 17% owned down here. So you can play your guys comfortably, depending on how many teams you build. But this is a range where a lot of names look very appealing, no doubt about it. But, you could also avoid it too. If you play the aggressive lineups, like we talked about, the stars and scrubs, if you're playing, we just used the JT example. If you're playing a JT fourth man in type lineup, you're not even going to be in this range. You're going to totally avoid the range. So there's ways to avoid these guys. I do think overall that the total number of guys that get a decent number of ownership in the 7K range is going to be pretty high because these are legitimate names, legitimate golfers, and they're priced under 8,000. So strong range off a lot of these guys. And again, ownership should get spread out here.
Yeah, it's definitely getting spread out. Like that's the other thing. It might actually be a spot potentially where every single player in this range is under 15% or at least very close. Like if Davis Thompson or, Straka gets steamed up or Bez, guys like that, maybe they do get steamed up enough. But with that PM/AM swing, with everything else, leaning in that direction, it actually does feel like you could see everybody from 7,900 or less stay, 99.9% of them stay at 15% or less. So you can definitely still get all the leverage in the world. And to our guy, Illini fan, it rarely works out. It's always comfy or cozy. Check the chalk every week. It's always down in that range. It's like the 6Ks, the new 7s. It turned that way for the last year and a half. People always end up. And yeah, this is another good one. Like I think every week's a good week for single entry or 3 max if you follow roster construction and process and not just picks and plays, because lots of ways to get different and move off of it. But yeah, definitely this week it's a good week to just play your guys. Like you can get leverage even if you think all these guys are 10%, you can get 20% of a bunch of them and be double the field on all of them. So you're in really good shape when ownership sets up like this, and then also when the roster construction is sort of leaning one way. And I'm not sure if it's because it's a week before a major or it's because it's overseas or whatever that might be, but definitely just feels like sort of everyone's landing on the same stuff. And now everyone got a late PM/AM narrative. Again, I know they're not all going to commit. I know it's not going to be 10% of the field that goes all in. I'm just saying when everyone gets that, make your adjustments, because I think people are definitely going to just lean to that because it's easier. It makes life easy. They're good. It's easier to build when the decision comes down to that. So I could definitely see that as a thing. And this is a good question, but I'm sure the regulars are going to know how I'm going to answer this. Like, I just don't care. It doesn't even matter. Like, I don't even think it's going to play the same way as it did the last 2 years. But like, then, Tom Kim is popular. His recent form sucks. His course history is great if you're using 2 years. Sungjae's recent form is incredible, but his last 2 years, he didn't make the cut here. But then everyone's hero, Aaron Rai, his form's incredible. And, he's so good here because he won 4 years ago. His last 2 years, he missed the cut too. Nothing special. So it's all how you're.
I think just to add on to that point real quick, I mean, it's at the point with these guys where they're just so good. Like even the 30th golfer in the world is so good. And when they're on their game and when they're clicking and in good form, I think they're just all good enough to contend at basically any sort of setup, any sort of layout, any sort of golf course they can contend. So that's my take. So we're kind of in the similar boat there.
And this has been true as well. This is a non-major, so it should be Sungjae season again. But at the end of the day, it really, separates yourself when you look at it like just that, because it's like, again, it's like the Rory thing. How many majors? There's only 4 majors. We're talking about 3 that Sungjae hasn't shown up in. He's still made, I think they said $5 million. He's grinding. It's not like he's trying any harder or not. Like, again, some people say, but at a major, they overthink it. Maybe. But will we ever really know? It's a 3 major sample size this year when he's crushing it everywhere else. It's also just the luck of the draw in some cases and the way it goes. So definitely like this comment. Dirk A, always in here supporting. We appreciate you. Says, as a person who's been there multiple times in Scotland, I can say that the weather can change very quickly, which is definitely true. It affects links type courses much more. I think that could easily switch. I'll always say that is like, that's why I do wave stacking instead of just weather wave stacking. I mean, there's guys that could go out and just get hot tomorrow, light it up early, and then end up being in on that split. So it's definitely possible. And then Deacon, I've been talking this all week long too. The Aaron Rai stuff. This guy did not have literally the year he won, which was a miscut, a deep 30th, and then a win. But he won here back then. This is where he's going to do it, they say. It was no Rory, no Xander, no Ludwig, no Colin Morikawa, no Hovland, just a bunch of other guys. And then even the mid-range guys weren't there as well. So, and this one's good too. Major Max narrative. I said keep Max on my radar for next week, but now I do kind of worry, like our guy Kyle says, is if he shows up this week, gives the sign of life, and then everybody plays him next week, because I know Max has done good here in the past. I think it was 16th and 12th. But again, he's an example. Is it course history when it's not really likely to play the same, or is it the form? He's been horrible. 61st, miscut, 31st, 22nd, way back, 2 months ago with an 8th place. So yeah, it's really tough to say how it goes, but that's why I focus more. I think like Hoop's saying, if you just focus more on recent form, you'd probably be fine. Or you can always take it from, to Hoop's point, how good these guys are. You could actually do something I do a lot, especially at majors, go really long-term form and just who's the guy, who's a good golfer that can just show up any given moment and now is priced much lower because of some of the situational stuff or the more recent form. So definitely look for those two angles when I'm going into these tournaments. I don't have much else to add here, Hoop, but I will say this just from a process perspective. I think from ownership numbers, ours and just around, I think we could see some late steam here on Sepp Straka for sure. Siwoo Kim, maybe a little bit, but Keith Mitchell and Sepp Straka are two that I could see it where they definitely get popped up, and even Hoagie at 7,100 as another guy. So just to throw that out there for you guys, that's three guys I think we see get steamed late, and I could definitely see them popping up in your single entry, higher dollar, smaller field, where those golfers are getting much more ownership in this range as it gets closer to crunch time. Anything else you got to add here, Hoop? If not, let's hop into this next range, 6K and below.
Yeah, we talked about it again on the Monday show, where a lot of these guys in the 6K range are typically, in without the 5K range, they'd be 7K golfers. There's just so many guys in here that I think are playable. I rattled off a lot on Monday, and I plan on playing a lot of them. I haven't really built teams yet. I'm going to do that later this afternoon, early evening. But as it stands right now, I have a lot of these guys in my player pool because of how I'm building teams. Like I talked about it in the opening. I want multiple studs on some teams. So if that's the case, I need a lot of 6K guys. And, luckily for me, there's a lot that I feel are in play. Pavon at 69, Ferguson, Wallace, Brent Wiesberger, Jordan L. Smith, Griffin, Hadwin, Eckroat, Hubbard, Cole, Power, Hisasune, Kevin Yu, Cam Davis, Andrew Novak, Mackenzie Hughes, Taylor Moore, Lee Hodges. I don't mind Rio. I don't mind a little bit of Putnam. There's just so many guys in this range. If I just I'll just plug in a $6,300 guy and a $6,500 guy. I got $9,300 left per spot. I can get 4 legit guys. I can get 2 top end guys and some 8K guys. Playing multiple 6K guys gives you endless options when it comes to roster construction. It does fall off in my eyes quite a bit when you go to the 5Ks. So I have some 5K guys in my pool, not a ton. I'm just loading up on this range because of the way I'm building my teams this week. I have to have these guys the way I want to build my teams, the roster construction I want. I need multiple of these guys. I feel very, very comfortable playing 2 of them in my lineup. There's just so many different ways you can build teams by playing a couple 6K guys. And, maybe it gets me off some of the more popular 7K guys, or I have a underweight approach on some of those 7K guys that we talked about. But it's going to be a very important range for what I'm doing this week. And like I said, luckily for me, there's a lot of guys here that I feel very comfortable with. I rattled off a bunch, but some of my favorites for sure would be Andrew Novak at 62. Cam Davis, obviously coming off the win, 62. Seamus Power, 64. I'm good with Eric Cole, 64. So maybe it's more of the guys in the lower 6K range, which helps me out even more building the teams the way I want to build them. But a lot of viable options here. We talked about it on Monday, and I kind of feel the same way about it here today on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, the chat wanted a Zal take, and then for Zalatoris, and they also want to know who the most disrespected is.
Most disrespectful price. You have it here in your name, buddy. It's definitely Andrew Novak. It's got to be Andrew Novak at 62, playing well. People wrote him off early last week. I think he was like 2 or 3 over, bounced back, and 3 straight top 20s for Andrew Novak. So 6,200 for him is a steal, and he will be titled the most disrespectful price tag this week.
I'm not sure if our guy Aaron means any disrespect, but I mean, I will say this. If it's
that's why, listen, I'll handle this one. I totally get that. But again, it's not because I'm sitting here saying, oh, I love all these guys. I'm touting all these guys. It is more so how I'm building my team. It's about roster construction, not saying play them all. I have a lot of fades this week. I have a lot of fades. I can go through them, but I'm not going to. I get the point. You don't want to go to a show and listen to someone say play everyone. But for me in the 6K range, it is a necessity because of roster construction for me and how I'm going to get different. I'm not just going to go in and play one guy above 10K and then hit the 8K range like everyone else is going to do. I'm building my teams differently. The way I'm building them differently is embracing a lot of these 6K guys. If you can't figure it out, I don't know what to tell you.
It's not just that. That's what I'm saying. Like, you guys probably noticed by now, I haven't done this for months on these shows. It's like, it's not, if you're watching a show in the year 2024, looking for my picks and plays, you're so far behind at this point. I'm sorry if it sounds rude. It's just the facts. We're playing a game, and everything we do at Ship It Nation, whether it's these free shows or the content on the site, the stone, everything that we do is set up to be able to teach you to become a better DFS player and make something competitive with all the other stuff out there that people are using and doing, to be able to do that and then make your process repeatable so that you actually know why you did it. Someone asked a 1v1 today, probably felt like I barked back, but it's a simple fact. Like, we don't even do 1v1s in the chat. Like, there's no benefit to that. You have to just flip a coin because nobody really knows. And there's so many other factors that go into it with your lineup. So the idea is, we're trying to give you as many ideas to actually beat the field that you're up against. And, right now, 140 watching this show. By the way, smash the like if you haven't already. We need those likes. We need those subscriptions. Make sure you guys are subbed to the channel so we can get to 8K and do another big giveaway. But just to say it, when people are watching these things and coming back in 1,000, 2,000 views, whatever, that's such a small niche of the 137,000 entries in certain tournaments like the Millie Maker next week, or 37,000 in the $25 this week. And I know you get it because you're here all the time. I think it's a good broad statement, and I'm glad you brought it up because I like for people to understand that. And that's the big difference between what we're doing and what other sites are doing. We're trying to frame it up so that it can help you actually beat the players and you're up against, the tournaments you're in, building for the certain field sizes that you're in, all these other factors that we're trying to use to help you guys get better at DFS. So, and while we try and improve ourselves. And I like this one too. This is the Discord fun that we do have. I've been in there a lot more on Thursdays, I will say, than I like to be. But, usually Thursdays I want to get out of there. Novak was stone dead after 3 holes or 2 holes on Thursday, and then he came back and top 10'd it or whatever, and now he's the most disrespectful price. So love to see that as well. Anything else here, Hoop? I mean, 6K range for me, I just think it's going to come down to, some of these wave stacks. I think if you're looking in like the PM wave, it's going to get very popular. Again, not necessarily overall, but for who's in the waves. And just to note some of them so people know, Ben Griffin is in the PM wave, so he can pop up. Mark Hubbard, if people want the notorious cut maker, he did it again last week with like birdie to make the cut. Victor Perez down at 6,300. Cam Davis is someone I think people would be comfortable with. And then after that, there's not too much. And I will say too, just down in this range in general, not much ownership as a whole at all, really, because that's the point I brought up earlier. It's people feel comfortable with just landing in that 7K range, regardless of how their construction goes. They just want to get back to that 7K zone. So anything else you want to add in the 6s?
Yeah, important point right there, because a lot of people are going to want to end in the 7s, and it's going to be easy to end in the 7s when you build like everyone else is going to build, where you're going to play one guy above 10K. You play Morikawa. Then you come down, you say, all right, you know what? I'm going to play Sung J M at 85 because I feel good about him. Then you got $7,800. So those teams are ending in the 7K range. They're not even going to touch the 6K range. So I am able to get leverage on a lot of guys in the 6K range by just building my teams a little bit differently. That's the strategy behind. I mean, I made it very clear what I'm doing this week. So if you want to do exactly what I'm doing, I couldn't make it more clear what I'm going to be doing this week. I'm going to be overweight on all those guys in the 6K range. It's not like I'm just sprinkling them in. I'm going to be overweight on a big chunk of those guys because of the way I'm building my teams. So I can't remember what your question was, but that was my final point in the 6K range.
You're on Team Adidas this week. So that's Xander. And that's Oberg, like you said, but also Xander as well. Up top.
I like that starting point. Xander Ludwig. Let's see. I mean, we got a lot of options here.
Plenty of those. I'll talk more on some of these guys because I know people want to do it, but Rin brings up a good point. We already bypassed EVR because we don't need to go there again for Rin. I gave him a little credit earlier today, but just to say it, like the other setup here, Hoop, is that in the 6K range at an event in Europe, let me put it this way. People get over here and they know a little bit about Ewan Ferguson. They know a little bit about Bernd Wiesberger. They've heard of Jordan L. Smith this week. So then what happens is people end up putting 3% of every guy down here that they had a thought on. 1 to 3%. That's the worst way to set it up, in my opinion, just because you're not giving yourself any chance. If it does end up being Wiesberger week, or if it ends up being Jordan L. Smith week, what's the point? You don't get to, there's no credit to you to say, oh, but I had him in a lineup and it went bad. If you put him in your single entry and you were balls to the wall, that's all in. That's your play. that's your guy, I'm with that. I'm saying if you're MMEing though, and you can tell me, oh, I had Wiesberger, he was just in all the wrong spots. How many lineups did you play? Oh, I played 150. How many lineups was he in? I think I had him like 2%. Okay, then you didn't even play him. You did actually, but you didn't play him. So just don't do that. That's what I'm talking about. When you're getting to these large fields where you're playing enough entries to matter, commit to your guys down here that you're going to take that stand on. If it's going to be Jordan L. Smith, then move it in on Jordan L. Smith. That's what I'm trying to say. So like get enough for it to matter. Maybe it's 10%, but at least you could say you got 15 lineups, or get 8 or 9%. So you can get 10 lineups in there roughly, give or take, whatever you want to do. So I think that's the bigger case. And then some of the guys down here, Hoop, I'll just rattle some names off, like Rasmus over Nikolai. Definitely could be a thing this week. He's just as, I think everyone thinks Nikolai is way better, and he technically is. He doesn't just play in the Euro events. So on paper, you could say that, but I think it's just an example where you can make a quick pivot on the same thing. Kitayama, if we think it's going to be, a little bit more scoring, bomb it out there, that sort of thing, I'd be fine with him. Ben Griffin, I think will get a little bit more popular, but he played incredible last week. And if it plays like a birdie fest, he could be involved. Seamus Power stands out. Victor Perez, Kevin Yu, same thing. What if he goes out there tomorrow and just scorches it? That's a guy that you could get to early on. Who else? Trying to see Thorbjorn Olesen. You want to go to him? He's 6K flat. He's got a PMT time tomorrow, so he could be another guy, but not much more for me in the 6s. And then is there anybody at all that you want to talk about in the 5K range, or just a couple guys that stand out for you?
Yeah, there's a couple down here. Grazerman at 59. Nick Taylor at 59, I don't hate. He hasn't been playing good, but when he's on, he can get up that leaderboard. Chandler Phillips, Valimaki, Southgate. Someone had mentioned Antoine Rosner. I don't mind him at 56. Ben Coles at 56, I think can remain in the player pool. Got to see. It just depends when it comes to roster construction, how many of these guys I need. But I feel comfortable with those. What was that, like 5 or 6, I'd say? That's kind of where I'm at down here. Not going to go crazy, obviously.
Yeah, Mark knows what's up. Have your foundation. Use this as building blocks. That's why there's tutorials, X-Dirk says. And I think that's kind of the key, too. Like Edward says, love the slate plan. In the slate plan, for those that don't know, I put the roster construction thoughts and the ownership thoughts and try and tie it all together. And I think that's the big thing. I hope people just read it and then formulate their own opinions and then take the guys that they like and use some of those roster construction thoughts to build out. Last week, I talked about those 8K guys coming through, and a lot of those 8K guys showed up with some of the guys in the 9K. So like a 9-9 and a bunch of 8s could have worked out pretty well. So just little things like that. I think that is the whole goal and what we're trying to do. We never wanted it to be, and never will want it to be or have it be, a site where it's like, you got to come over here to get Hoops picks. That's not what it's all about. That's a product of having everything you need to have success with DFS. Or if you don't have time, he's grinding, he's doing this full time, myself included, same things, many of the others on our team, but really just saying it from that perspective. I think it's just more about getting better at the actual game, and then the most valuable and most affordable content out there. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to compete with everybody else and have very valuable content at the most affordable price, which we're smashing it on that angle. So
yeah, and then make sure for sure to tune in Friday. Big, huge announcements in terms of what we're doing, and it's an offer that if you're on the sidelines, and even if you are a current member, you're going to be able to take advantage of this offer. It's very unique, I'd say, in terms of other packages in the industry. Very unique offering that we want to get out there to the public, and that's going to be Friday at 12 Eastern.
Definitely. And that's what we love to do. We love to do stuff where it can help everybody. And we never, and anybody who's been in since day one has always got taken care of. Anybody who's been with us, with the merger that we had with Degenerate 75 and came through in that, they've been taken care of. Like, everybody always gets taken care of. That's always the goal, that everybody gets to come along, and it's, whatever the timing you got in does matter, but this is the time I think a lot of people are going to want to get in. So come back Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern. There'll be a ton of good stuff going on. Lastly, for me in the 5K, just people wanted a couple names: Matthew Jordan, Callum Hill, and my boy and Degenerate, our guy Degenerate 75's boy, Romain Langasque, the French. He looks pretty good at 5,800 too. He also has a PMT time. So I know, like Rosner, Southgate, I think Joanne mentioned it here, Crocker, Ben Coley, it bet him at 300-1. I threw that in the tidbit. Sean Crocker 400-1 or something with an each way. So if you like Crocker, maybe that's the guy to go to. But I like Romain down here. I think he's interesting. And then maybe I don't know, Valimaki and Southgate. But again, I'm not going to get to all these guys. I just want to let you guys know that. Our guy Monday's in the chat. We're just finishing up the round 1 projections and ownership. So a lot of stuff going on for you guys to check out. Again, Friday is going to be the key. 12 p.m. Eastern, Hoop, myself, here on this channel, breaking it all down, NFL Early Bird Launch Show. Hoop, any final thoughts before we get out of here, my friend?
Yeah, just make sure to tune in Friday. Like I said, it's going to be an offering that everyone's going to be able to take advantage of, very unique to this industry and something that we're very excited to get out there to the public. Can't wait. Obviously, it revolves around NFL, but there's going to be some short-term benefit as well that we're going to announce on Friday.
Yeah, Sean Crocker is 5,500. That was another one that the chat mentioned that, like I said, Ben Coley bet him. So maybe he's a guy to go to, but I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. I don't see anything else in the chat. If you guys have questions, you remember, throw them out in the Discord. We got most, if not all, the content up. I think, Hoop, just your exposures yet to go up, right?
That'll come in this evening. I'm going to build teams probably after dinner, so it'll probably be early this evening. Yeah,
should be pretty good. If you guys can do us that favor on the way out, just hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds. If you like the show, hit that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. When we get to 8,000 subscribers, we'll be giving away another membership. I'm not sure what we'll do for this one yet. It'll at least be a 6-month, if not an annual, maybe a PGA annual, so that you can have full access to that. But obviously football coming back, maybe we just switch gears to anybody who wants football. So we'll let you guys know when we get there. But that's going to do it for this week, guys. For Hoop, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it.